Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Flux, and welcome back to General Psychology. In the last module, we explored how your senses help you experience the world, how you see, hear, touch, taste, and balance your way through life. But today, we're going to take a step inward. What does it mean to be aware? And not just aware of your surroundings, but aware of yourself as a unique individual. And how do you understand that other people have their own thoughts, feelings, and perspectives, and how that might be different from yours? This is where we dive into the fascinating world of consciousness, self-awareness, and theory of mind, the building blocks for how we understand ourselves and others in the world. But before we jump into today's material, let's do a quick review from Module 6. Which part of the brain processes visual information? A, the temporal lobe, B, the occipital lobe, C, the parietal lobe, or D, the frontal lobe? If you picked B, the occipital lobe, you're right on point. That's where your visual cortex transforms raw sensory data from your eyes into the detailed images that you see every day. Which sense relies on hair cells in the cochlea to process stimuli? Is it A, vision, B, hearing, C, taste, or D, touch? If you said B, hearing, you nailed it. The cochlea is where sound waves are converted into neural signals that your brain can interpret. In this lecture, we're going to be taking a look at the mysteries of the mind. We'll start by briefly mentioning the difficulties of understanding consciousness, and then we'll dive into how we conceptualize self-awareness and what we mean by theory of mind. We'll discuss the role this plays in social existence, and wrap up by discussing different approaches to modeling the mind. Then we'll end with a bit of conclusion and review. So let's begin with the big question. What exactly is consciousness? Consciousness is one of those concepts that we all innately feel like we know, but is quite difficult to operationalize. How would you define it? It's challenging to come up with a consensus definition. For the purposes of this lecture, we'll be defining consciousness as the awareness of yourself and your environment. It's knowing that you exist as an individual in the world. But consciousness isn't just about being awake and aware. It's about recognizing your own thoughts, feelings, and experiences, and seeing them as something uniquely yours. That brings us to two key questions that we'll explore today. How do we become aware of ourselves? And how do we understand that other people have minds of their own with thoughts and feelings that might be different from ours? These questions take us into the realm of self-awareness and theory of mind, the foundation of how we understand not just the world, but our place in it. Let's pause for a moment of reflection. Can you remember the first time you became aware of yourself? Maybe it was seeing a video of yourself for the first time and realizing, hey, that's me. Or perhaps it was hearing your voice recorded and thinking, do I really sound like that? These moments of self-recognition can feel strange, sometimes even disorienting, but they're also powerful reminders that our sense of self is something we develop over time, and it's not always as stable as we think. Let's dive into self-awareness, one of the most fascinating and fundamental aspects of being human. At its core, self-awareness is the ability to recognize yourself as an individual, separate from the environment, from other people. It's the understanding that you exist as a unique entity with your own thoughts, feelings, and experiences. But self-awareness isn't something we're born with. It's something we develop over time. So when and how does that happen? For most humans, self-awareness begins to emerge around 18 months of age. Before this point, babies might respond to their reflection in a mirror, but they don't necessarily understand that the person staring back at them is themselves. One classic way to test this is through experiments like the shopping cart task, reported in a classic 2007 study by Moore and colleagues. In this task, a toddler stands on a mat attached to a shopping cart and is asked to push the cart forward. But here's a twist. The mat is actually preventing the cart from moving. Let's watch a video that covers this experiment.
Look, Nancy, look at the shopping cart.
At Chris Moore's lab at Dalhousie University, researchers developed the shopping cart study to examine this question.
Look, so you can roll it up like that, see that, and you can push it.
15-month Ainsley is introduced to the shopping cart.
I'm gonna get you to push it.
After a brief demonstration, researchers wanted to see if Ainsley will figure out how to get the cart to her mother.
Show Mommy. Bring the card over here. You want to bring me the card? Let's push it over. My goodness.
Ainsley pushes and pushes.
Come here. Push it over.
The cart does not get any closer to her mother.
Push it. Push it. Let me see. Over here.
Researchers believe that in order for the baby human to solve this problem, they have to have a sense of self. At 15 months, Ainsley has no idea that it's her body that is preventing the cart from moving.
Yeah, can you show me?
Is that a special card? That's a very special card.
Next comes 14-month
Just your
Oscar.
size. Come show me. Come show me.
He too can't figure out why the cart won't move.
What's the cart?
Out of frustration, he tries to climb into the cart. 16-month Maria gets a bit closer to solving the mystery. She knows it has something to do with the mat, but doesn't make the further connection to herself and thinks it's the mat's fault.
Push it to Mama.
You push it to Mama.
18-month Jonathan pushes once and steps off the mat. He has quickly figured out that he's the one who is the obstacle to moving the cart, which suggests that he is aware of himself and his body.
Can you bring it over to Mommy? Can you bring Mommy the card?
Can you bring it over to Mama?
Abigail is also 18 months.
Bring Mommy the card.
Yeah. Oh, you're such a
Good girl. You push it over to your mom. Bring Mommy the card.
She takes a walk to the front of the cart to analyze the problem.
her.
Bring Mommy the
It
card.
takes her no time to understand that if she is standing on the mat, there is no way the cart can move.
Abby, bring Mom the card.
Her solution is to roll up the mat.
Oh my goodness.
From this, researchers have concluded that baby humans become aware of themselves only after 18 months of life.
Look at the girl, Mommy.
At around 18 months, children start to realize, wait a second, I'm standing on this mat, and that's why the cart won't move. This shows that they've developed an understanding of their own physical presence in the environment. Another famous way to test for self-awareness is called the mirror test, also called the mark test. Here's how it works. A small mark is placed on an individual's face, maybe a dab of lipstick or a spot of paint, without them knowing it. Then they're placed in front of a mirror. If the individual reaches up to touch the mark on their own face, it shows they recognize the reflection as themselves, a clear sign of self-awareness. But if they try to touch the mirror or don't react at all, it suggests that they don't yet have this recognition. It's not just humans who can pass this test. Chimpanzees, bonobos, dolphins, elephants, and even magpies have shown signs of self-awareness using the mirror test. It's a fascinating glimpse into the minds of other species. But here's where things get interesting. Not all self-awareness is visual. Many animals build models of their worlds using other senses. Dolphins augment their vision with echolocation. Snakes make use of heat to monitor their environment. And birds can sense the magnetic fields of the Earth. Some animals might fail the mirror test, but still show signs of understanding their own impact on the environment. They may manipulate objects or adjust their behavior based on their unique perception of their surroundings, and that may not be with their visual senses. This can make their own self-understanding difficult for us to recognize. So while the mirror test is a powerful tool, it's just one way to measure self-awareness. The reality is much more complex and incredibly fascinating. Let's do a quick attention check. At what age do most children begin to pass the mirror test? Is it A, 6 months, B, 12 months, C, 18 months, or D, 4 years? If you picked C, 18 months, you've got it. That's when most children begin to recognize themselves in a mirror, showing the emergence of self-awareness. Recognizing yourself in a mirror is a big deal. It shows that you understand that you exist as a separate entity in the world. But what about understanding that other people have their own thoughts, feelings, and beliefs? That's an entirely different cognitive leap. This brings us to theory of mind. Let's dive into how this concept develops and why it's so essential for how we navigate our social world. So, what exactly is theory of mind? It is this understanding that other people have thoughts, beliefs, feelings, and perspectives that might be different from ours. This ability allows us to predict how someone might react in a situation, understand why they're behaving in a certain way, or even realize when someone's trying to deceive you. Without theory of mind, navigating the social world would be nearly impossible. You wouldn't be able to interpret someone's emotions, anticipate their reactions, or even tell a lie, because lying requires knowing that someone else holds a belief that you can manipulate. Just like self-awareness, theory of mind develops over time. Most children begin to show signs of theory of mind between ages 4 and 5 years old. Before this, children tend to be what we call egocentric. They assume that everyone else knows exactly what they know. It's not that they're selfish, it's just that their brains haven't yet developed the ability to understand that others have different perspectives than them. One of the most famous ways to test theory of mind is through false belief tasks. Let's take a look at one of them. This video demonstrates a classic theory of mind task called the Sally-Ann test.
The classic test for mind reading is called the Sally-Ann. It's a test that normal kids are expected to pass when they're 5 years old.
Who'd like to go next?
Right, okay, this is Sally, and this is Anne. Which one's Sally?
This one.
Well done, right. And Sally has got a basket. And Anne has got a box, nothing in it. And Sally has got a marble. And Sally puts her marble into her basket to keep it safe while she goes outside to play. But while Sally's outside, naughty Anne moves the marble from Sally's basket into her box. Naughty Anne. So where's the marble now?
Box.
Good. Where did Sally put the marble in the beginning?
Basket.
In the basket. Well done. So when Sally comes back from playtime, where will she look for her marble?
In the box.
In the box.
Robert should have said the basket, because that is where Sally, in her ignorance, would have thought it was. He hasn't mind-read the situation from her point of view.
Let's recap. In this classic false belief task, Sally places her ball in a basket and leaves the room. While she's gone, Anne moves the ball into a box. When Sally comes back, the child is asked, where will Sally look for the ball? If the child has developed theory of mind, they'll say Sally will look into the basket because Sally doesn't know that the ball has moved. But if the child hasn't developed theory of mind yet, they'll say that Sally will look in the box because they know where the ball is and they assume that Sally does too. This simple task reveals a complex cognitive skill. The ability to understand that someone else's belief might be different from reality, and from our own knowledge. But theory of mind also isn't just a human ability. In a study by Woodruff and Premack from 1979, chimpanzees were able to deceive human experimenters to get rewards. This suggests that they had an understanding of what the humans knew, and could manipulate that knowledge to their own advantage. Other animals, like crows and ravens, part of the corvid family, also show behaviors that hint at theory of mind. They'll hide food when other birds are watching, and then move it when they're alone, suggesting that they know that the other birds might steal their stash. While the depth of theory of mind in animals is still debated, these behaviors show that the roots of understanding other minds might be more widespread in the animal kingdom than we once thought. Self-awareness isn't just about recognizing your reflection in the mirror, it's about understanding how your actions and words affect the people around you. For example, think about a time when you realized that you were talking too much in a group conversation and decided to give others a chance to speak. Or maybe you caught yourself saying something inappropriate and immediately felt the flush of embarrassment. That's self-awareness at work. It helps you adjust your behavior, grow as a person, and build deeper connections with others. Now let's talk about the role of theory of mind here. This ability is like having an internal social compass. It helps you to predict how others will react, interpret their emotions, and even understand their motivations. Without theory of mind, you'd struggle to navigate even the simplest social interactions. You wouldn't be able to tell when someone is joking or serious, when they're happy or angry, or when they might need support. It also enables more complex behaviors like empathy, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, cooperation, working together towards a common goal, and even deception, like telling a white lie to avoid hurting someone's feelings. But what happens when theory of mind doesn't work as expected? We've all experienced those awkward moments when we misread a situation, like assuming someone knows something that they don't, or thinking a friend is fine when they're actually upset. In more significant ways, Differences in theory of mind can affect how people communicate and connect with others. For example, individuals on the autism spectrum may experience delays or differences in theory of mind development, which can make social interactions more challenging. They might have difficulty interpreting nonverbal cues, understanding sarcasm, or predicting others' reactions. But it's important to remember that these are just different ways of experiencing the world, not necessarily deficits. Understanding these differences can help us build more inclusive and empathetic communities. Let's do another attention check. Which of the following is a key reason theory of mind is important for social interaction? A. It helps you recognize your reflection in a mirror. B. It allows you to understand that others have different thoughts and feelings. C. It helps you to detect physical sensations like pain and temperature. Or D. It lets you control your emotions in stressful situations. If you picked B, you've got it. Theory of mind is all about understanding that others have their own unique thoughts, feelings, and beliefs. And that's what makes meaningful social interaction possible. So we've explored how self-awareness helps us to understand ourselves and how theory of mind helps us to understand others. But how do we actually model these concepts in our own minds? Just like we create mental maps of our surroundings, we also build mental models of how our minds and other people's minds work. But here's the catch. These models aren't always perfect. So what exactly is a mental model? A mental model is a simplified representation of how something works. Think about how you know how to ride a bike. You don't consciously think about the physics involved every time you hop on, but your brain has built a model that helps you to balance and steer. We use mental models not just for the physical world, but also for understanding people. You might have a mental model of how your best friend will react to bad news, or how a coworker will handle a stressful situation. But here's the thing. These models are just simplifications of people's behavior. They're not perfect, but they help us to navigate the world more efficiently. When we talk about theory of mind, we're discussing the mental models we build of other people's minds. You can't actually know what someone else is thinking. You can only make an educated guess based on their behavior, body language, and your past experiences with them. And those guesses aren't always right. It's possible to misread someone's emotions and think that they're upset when they're actually just tired. We could assume someone knows something, but they don't, leading to confusion. Or sometimes we can even project our own feelings onto someone else, thinking that they feel the same way that we do. These models help us to navigate complex social landscapes, anticipate the reactions of others, and build stronger connections. But it's not just other people's minds that we model. We also create models of our own minds. And those models are also not always accurate. We like to believe that we're consistent in our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. But the truth is, there's often more inconsistency here than we realize. Our brains are really good at rationalizing our past decisions to fit in with the stories that we tell ourselves about who we are. This can lead to blind spots in our self-awareness. We might not recognize when we've changed our opinions, or we might not notice patterns in our behavior that others can see clearly. This again brings us back to the guiding quote by statistician George Box, "All models are wrong, but some are useful." Your mental models, whether they're about yourself or other people, are never going to be 100% accurate. They're simplifications of reality, and they're full of gaps and biases. But that doesn't mean they're not valuable. These models help us to navigate the complexities of life. They allow us to make predictions, adapt to new situations, and build meaningful connections with others. The key is to recognize the limitations of our models. When we do that, we can stay open to new information, adjust our assumptions, and keep refining how we understand the world and ourselves. Let's take a moment to reflect again. Have you ever made an assumption about yourself or someone else that turned out to be totally wrong? Maybe you thought you'd stay calm in a stressful situation, but you ended up freaking out. Or maybe you misread someone's intentions, thinking they were being rude when they were actually just being shy. Recognizing these flaws in our own mental models can be a little uncomfortable, but it's also an opportunity for growth. It helps us adjust our perspectives, become more self-aware, and better understand the people around us and ourselves. Today we've explored consciousness, self-awareness, and theory of mind. And we've taken a look at how these mental models shape our perceptions. Let's bring it together with some final thoughts. We began by discussing the complexities of studying and understanding consciousness, defining it as an awareness of ourselves and an awareness that other people are separate and have minds of their own. Self-awareness helps us recognize ourselves as unique individuals. It develops when we're about 18 months old, And experiments like the mirror test help us to understand how and when this ability emerges. Theory of mind is the ability to understand that other people have their own thoughts and perspectives. It usually develops around 4 to 5 years of age and is tested using tasks like the Sally Ann test. These abilities are at the heart of how we connect with others, feel empathy, and build relationships. Without them, navigating the social world would be nearly impossible. Finally, we've seen how our mental models of ourselves and others are never perfect, but even flawed models are useful tools that help us to adapt, grow, and make sense of our world. Before we wrap up, here are a couple of review questions to keep you thinking. Which of the following animals have passed the mirror test of self-awareness? A. Dogs, B. Elephants, C. Cats, or D. Parrots? If you picked B. Elephants, you're absolutely right. Elephants, along with chimpanzees, dolphins, and magpies, have shown signs of self-awareness in the mirror test. At what age do children typically develop a theory of mind? Is it A. 18 months, B. 4 to 5 years, C. 10 years, or D. at birth? The correct answer here is B. 4 to 5 years. That's when most children begin to understand that other people have their own thoughts and beliefs, separate from their own. As we wrap up today's lecture, I want you to remember, self-awareness and theory of mind are powerful tools. They shape how we see ourselves, how we connect with others, and how we navigate the complexities of our life. But like any tools, they're not perfect. Our perceptions are filtered through biases, assumptions, and limited information. And that's where the beauty of this process of consciousness lies. The key isn't to strive for perfect understanding. It's to remain curious, open to growth, and ready to adjust our models as we learn more about ourselves and the people around us. Thanks for joining me on this exploration of consciousness. As always, stay curious, stay resilient, and above all, live life in flux. I'll see you in the next lecture.